Attention Big Blue Nation. Welcome to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now, a unique exploration of America's paramount collegiate hardwood program, featuring anecdotes and memories from the 1950s forward to the very latest on everything UK hoops. Kentucky Basketball Then and Now seats Wildcat fans front court and center. Here's Lexington native and SEC standout Gary Waddell and Owensboro native and Rough Front senior student manager Mike Harreld.
Hello and welcome again to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now. Again, I'm Gary Waddell. Mike Harreld, my co-host, is with us. And then Tom Gray, who joins us on occasion and has extremely good information on the program, is also on the phone. He lives in Covington and joining us there. You know, before guys, we get into the Alabama game coming up, which is certainly a big one, big test. Let's review the LSU game for a minute. I personally thought UK played much better, and it was good to see Jacob Toppin come to life. But it's also disheartening to know that UK played very well and was playing at home and only beat LSU by 3 points. Had that game been in Baton Rouge, we probably lose.
Yes, and it went right down to the wire.
Yes.
It was very, very close. So I don't think we're a domineering team at all at the moment.
No, you're exactly right. And, the new coach, Mac McMahon, of course, came down from Murray, is off to a good start at LSU. 10 months ago, mid-March, LSU had 0 basketball players on scholarship. Had none. He completely rebuilt. He brought 3 players from Murray down with him, kind of raided that program, and then hit the portal very hard and successfully. I mean, they were well coached, and we were lucky to get out of there alive.
Gary, and that's very indicative of what's going on today. Two things there. One, as you mentioned earlier, the coaches are all getting better. They're being paid more. The demands on them are higher, and so every team is under a lot of expectation to win. So it puts pressure on the coaches. And so that makes everything try harder. And then the portal has changed the game along with the NIL. Those two things kind of, to me, are two fingers in the same glove. It allows people to move, and the money can flow to them if there's somebody there to provide it, which right now it seems there is. So the competition is greater than it's ever been.
Yep. And
we can talk a little more later, but I think Kentucky has lost some of its zeal. They just don't seem to have the leadership and coaching that they need to really be special.
Yeah, there was a reporter for the Athletic that I guess Monday or Tuesday. Anyway, she came out with a number of things about UK, and she had talked to some SEC coaches off the record and said teams and coaches aren't in fear of Kentucky anymore like they used to be. They've shown they can be beaten, and that's one of many things she said. One of the coaches said the offense is outdated and had a number of good comments, but none of them positive, particularly on it. But
Gary, I think it's going to be hard for coaches. Adolph Rupp was one of a kind. He coached at the top of his game for 40 years.
Yep.
There is no coach alive today that will be able to do that. Krzyzewski is the last one who did it. I don't think there'll be another in our lifetimes. Those coaches are in the past, and so the coaches now are good for 5 or 10 years, and then they have to adjust, and they just can't do it.
Yeah. Particularly stress there at Kentucky, coaching is only part of it. The big part of it is controlling the fans.
Yeah.
Cal right now is seeing more fan pressure than he's ever felt. You get on the message board, and every third or fourth one is, let's try to buy him out, which is going to be impossible, but that's what you're hearing is got to get him out and need to do coaching, but all that's up to Cal. He's got 6 or 7 years left at $8 million. So I don't think Cal's going to give that up easily unless a major buyout or something. And let's hope this year turns around. He could. He's done that before where with the Twins particularly, we were having a very mediocre season and went to the Final Four, the Harrison twins. So it can be done. Let's hope it changes here. But Matt Jones yesterday had a really good, on his morning program, had a really good overview of NIL and how it relates to Kentucky. Reluctantly, Mitch Barnhart and the administration has gotten on board with the collective through either big donors urging them or fans or whatever, because Mitch was totally against it and has changed here in the last 3 weeks or so. And I think pressure from Stoops, big time also, to keep players. I mean, part of basketball and football now is not only getting good players, but keeping good players. But Matt said the collective can now raise enough money to keep the superstars, but will have trouble getting the 4 and 3 and 4 star players. Matt also said something that I'm sure surprised a lot of listeners because the average fan never thinks about this, but he said there's a small group of UK fans who don't overtly root against the UK basketball team or the UK football team, but are smiling when they lose. And again, that probably shocked a lot of people. I can relate to that in that, I went to a school that football I didn't know it at the time. When I went to Florida, I thought, surely most fans are not going to favor football over basketball. And how naive that was, having grown up in Lexington, which I've called the Mecca of college basketball. But it didn't take me long down there, and football was just starting to see that the celebrities on campus are not the basketball players, but football players, just the opposite of what UK has been for 60 years. So it's just, it's frustrating to pick up the Gainesville Sun or a Florida paper in mid-February in the middle of basketball season and the beat writers talking about spring football practice already. And also having 4,000 to 6,000 people at a game is not particularly encouraging and also inspiring. But don't get me wrong, I'm glad I went to Gainesville. Proud I'm a grad, and there are a lot of very nice people down there. I've developed a number of friendships, such as Bill Koss, and Mac Irvin, who I'm grateful to, and they've helped me in my business career. So I'm not knocking anything about Florida, but the fans like football more, and that gets into this, what Matt said, that and I imagine the fans who aren't particularly happy when UK wins a basketball game are all people that were connected to the football program, and they weren't as good. You would expect the publicity, but they get tired of hearing UK basketball this, UK basketball that, and after a while, because they're not as good as athletes on the other side, but they work just as hard in practice, and can get frustrating. So, but anyway, that's what Matt said yesterday, and I'm sure that probably the average fan could care less. They like them both in season, and that's probably 95%. But I'm sure there are a few each way who are rooting for the other side, other sport. And of course, Cal didn't help that at all in September when he was interviewed and said Kentucky is a basketball school. We all know it has been 65 years or so, but he didn't have to say it. It added nothing to the a positive to the situation, and it only gotten him in trouble with Stoops and so forth. And so anyway.
I think, like any organization, it starts at the top. And, most people, from what I read, consider our athletic director to be really good. What I hear, though, is he has no charisma.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't.
And the few times I've been around him in social events and stuff with the UK alumni, he's the opposite of what you would expect. And I think we need to start there and get a new one. And then we need to get them we should have coaches that work together and root for each other. Maybe deep down inside, football hopes basketball loses or vice versa, but they need to exhibit every indication that we're all one school and one team.
Yep.
And I think in general over the years, Coach Cal has done a good job of that. But we just don't have the leadership and the teamwork. And then it just filters down. I'm not an expert at football by a long shot, but they don't seem to have at times a lot of teamwork, and certainly had a disappointing season based on what we had hoped and thought they might do. And then we just don't have any leadership, it seems to me, like on this team. So we got all these intangibles that are working against us. And, on any given day, maybe that doesn't matter, but over a period of time, I think it amounts to a big difference.
Yeah, I think Cal has done a lot. I think the football recruiters, when they have visits by prospects, try to get by Cal's office. Nobody talks better than Cal. Nobody's a better salesman that I'm aware of that's better than Cal. And he and Stoops, well, I'm sure they weren't best friends, but they sure put on a good face before Cal's comments. Now I'm not sure Stoops has even put on a good face to act like he likes him. But I remember Joe Hall liked it when UK football was going well because it took less pressure off him.
Sure.
And I mean, that makes sense. It kind of deflected it for, maybe a month later or something than he normally would get it. So there's pros and cons to all that. Watching the football game Monday night and seeing Damar Hamlin get injured, it brought back vivid memories of John Stewart. And for younger listeners out there, Stewart was a 7-foot big-time recruit out of the Indianapolis area. He signed with Tubby to come to UK and would have come in with Keith Bogans, but he was rated as one of the top prospects in the country. Was out of a suburb of Indianapolis. But in one of the tournament games, he passed out on the floor, and time they got it to the emergency room, he was dead and of a heart attack. So, I think Kentucky fans, it was very unfortunate for Hamlin, and they say he's improving quite a bit, and I hope that continues. Sounds like a great young man. But, Tom, you and I talked about that a little bit yesterday, that your thought was the same, that it brought back memories of John Stewart.
Yeah, it definitely did for me. And I know Tubby Smith a little bit. I'm not his world's best friend or anything, but I know him enough that he drops me an email now and then, and I do the same and that sort of stuff. I know that even to this day affected him in ways I can't describe, to lose that young man. This is a kid he was fat. I'll just say it. He was 7 foot and 300 pounds. He was losing weight. He was signed with the best basketball team in the country. His future was all ahead of him, as Yogi Berra used to say.
Yeah.
And things were going well, and then all of a sudden, this heart condition or whatever it was took him away from us. And that really affected Tubby in a major way. And it probably influenced negatively the rest of his career, because that really, I know that really bothered him. And of course, it would anybody. And something similar happened with Marvin Stone long after he left UK.
Yeah.
He had a heart attack in the middle of a game and passed away. So it seems to happen with these big, tall, maybe a bit overweight kids more than it should. I don't know what it is. Is it hard to diagnose the problem, or who knows what? But it's hopefully the young man who's the Buffalo Bill defensive back will recover. But the chances of recovery from that kind of event are about 25%. So fingers crossed, prayers up for him.
Yes. One of the things that's been improved since the time Tubby's player, I forgot what you said his name was. I've forgotten him, but
John Stewart.
The trainers are better prepared. It was obviously very well equipped and very well trained people responding to Hamlin, and I think that went a long ways toward giving him a fighting chance. Because once you go unconscious and stop breathing, unless you get something going quickly, it's over. And of course, we still don't know if he's going to be quote unquote okay. Hopefully he will, but I think that over time, with more money and more emphasis on safety, it's helped. But there's just it's a risky game.
Yeah.
It is.
Most of us don't think about, but every time you get in your car, it might be your last time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when you go out on that court or football field or whatever, it might be your last time. All you can do is get checked to make sure you're as sound as you can be, or take corrective action, and then stay in shape and learn to do the right things. But stories yet to be told. But I'm cautiously optimistic that Hamlin will be okay. Whether he'll ever be able to play again or not, I don't know.
I doubt that. But we in Florida had the guy that passed out at Florida FSU 3 years ago or so, and was in critical condition for a while, and he's made it back, and he's actually playing for Kansas State now and getting on the floor. I don't know if Florida encouraged him to come back to Florida, thinking of liability issues, but I'm sure he signed everything in the world before Kansas State would let him play. But he was a preseason player of the year in the SEC. In third or fourth game that happened, and so you never know. And this guy wasn't overweight; he was 6'5", 6'6", and gosh, what's his name, Tom? I can't think of it.
Johnson sticks in my mind, but I'm not sure if that's right.
I should know, being a Gator. But anyway, he's back playing, and I hope he either way it happens, it probably costs him a lot of money, because I don't know how many pro teams are willing to pay him millions to be a first-round draft choice and have that risk that they would be involved with, that he may not be able to play. But getting back to the Alabama game, their resume is quite good. They're 13-2, and their only losses are to Gonzaga and UConn, two of the top 4 teams in the country. It has beaten North Carolina, Memphis, Michigan State, and Houston when Houston was number 1. Brandon Miller leads Alabama in scoring. He was a guy that some people thought was the best high school player in the country last year, but he leads them in scoring. He's out of Tennessee, but his dad played for Gene Stallings at Alabama, so that's, I'm sure, where the Alabama recruiting connections come into play. So, but he's a player. He'll only be there 1 year, but Saturday will be the first time I will have seen him play, but they say he is tremendous. They compare him to Jabali at Auburn last year, where he's 6'8" or 9" and just has a beautiful form shot, can shoot outside as well as inside, and quite a player. So that will be a tough one for us. I don't know who we'll put on him or try to, but sure it won't be Oscar, because he'll get Oscar in foul trouble pretty quickly, I would think. Some other just random thoughts that I've got. Saw that Duke lost last night by 16 points to North Carolina State in Raleigh, which was a surprise of the margin. It didn't shock me that Duke lost. In this one, I was smiled a little bit, where Georgetown lost his 25th straight Big East game. And when you think about where they were just a few years ago, that's kind of hard to believe. But the mighty have fallen, and of course Thompson's son took over the program for 4 or 5 years, and I'm sure it was with great reluctance, but Georgetown had to fire him. And I'm surprised that they haven't fired their current coach, who, of course, played there and got the program going. He was the first superstar at Georgetown. And also last night surprised me by the margin. Georgia beat Auburn by 12 points. And also, I didn't realize till recently, because I don't follow the pros that closely till the playoffs, but Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is averaging 30 points per game for Oklahoma City this year. What a great pro he has turned out to be, and I don't think any of us saw that he was going to be that good. But while he was at UK, of course, we could say that about Booker and a number of guys that seemingly played better once they were a couple years in the pros. And some fans have wondered about that, why they play better in the pros than they did at UK.
Well, I think that's fairly easy to explain. People forget that the players they used to see that were stars. They were juniors and seniors, and they'd had a couple more years to mature. People like Booker came along, and he was very good in college, but he still had a lot of maturing to do, and he's done it, and he's made himself a lot better. He would have been a lot better if he'd have stayed at UK for 2 or 3 more years, but of course the money makes that prohibitive now. But so I mean, it's just a lot of these kids when they first come out of high school are not really physically mature in any sense of the word, and they've still got a lot of practicing and developing to do. And I think Booker is a great example, and he's really improved his game from what wasn't a very bad game. I mean, it was a very good game when he was at UK.
He didn't even start at UK, which is kind of course, that was one of the better teams that we've had. That was the 15 team, I think, wasn't it? That
it was, yeah.
That was a 38-0 group that, the second team was as good as the first. But yeah, it's good to see him.
Gary, Mike makes a really good point there about the fact that we're longtime UK fans and we're used to having heroes from their junior and senior season at UK.
Yep.
If you'll remember, Dan Issel, in my opinion, probably the best ever player in UK history so far, was good but not great as a freshman and sophomore. Casey outscored him as a freshman, and Casey outscored him as a sophomore, and was the better player on those teams. Issel matured and got really good as a junior and super good as a senior. If it were a different world and Issel had gone to the pros as a sophomore, I don't know if it's the same Dan Issel result. And you can name other ones just like him.
Yep.
UK players generally took a year or so of adjustment at the varsity level before they were stars. And even guys like Riley, Dampier, name any ones you want. It takes a year of adjusting to high-level basketball to really get to your maximum ability, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the saying for years when I was following Coach Rupp was, if you were good and you'd go to UK and work hard, like he was probably the biggest taskmaster and person to make people focus and work hard that I've ever known. But the saying was, if you were good, he'd make you great. If you were great, he'd make you an All-American. And I think there was some truth in that statement, and that the development was coming along, physically, just because they're maturing more naturally. But then they were working hard and building themselves up. And now, something we didn't do back in those days was lifting weights and doing the cross country and stuff. That really didn't start until my senior year. So a lot of those guys are now doing that kind of stuff and helping their game and their physical abilities a lot.
Yeah, they also may play 100 games in the summer in AAU, 2 or 3 games a day.
Yes,
so
that's right.
And they're not playing on cardboard shoes like we did with the Converse and getting blisters all the time. Boy, those bringing back bad memories. But the shoes are so much better than they were back in the 60s and before that. And the only shoe people wore back then was Converse. Till Adidas kind of came into play, and people thought they looked funny with those 3 stripes on the side. But and then Nike got involved, and it's game over. But anyway, anything else you have, Mike? Do you have a Adolph story? If we're coming to a conclusion here.
Yeah, I was thinking about Coach Rupp, and as I do a lot because I learned so much from him, and he made such an impression on me. But story that Larry Conley told me my sophomore year, Kentucky went to back then they had the Sugar Bowl basketball tournament along with the Sugar Bowl game, and Kentucky won the Sugar Bowl tournament. I forget who they beat the first game, but the second game they beat Duke with Terry Mobley made literally a last second shot, and of course Cotton Nash was supposed to take the shot, but Duke had other things in mind, so they threw it over to Terry, and he put it in. So, of course, Coach Rupp is feeling pretty buoyant. If you lost a game and you were on the road, the normal drill was to get everybody up the next morning about 6 o'clock, grab a quick breakfast, and slip out of town. He didn't want the media or anybody else around bugging them if they'd gotten beat. But of course, if they won, he was feeling a whole lot better and not quite so anxious to get out of town. But he was also, as I've said in other stories, very impatient, very demanding, didn't want to wait on anything. So the day after the game, they're leaving the hotel. And of course, it's the Sugar Bowl football game, and there's thousands of people around. And so the elevators were slow, and that kind of stuff just drove him crazy. I always had to get him in the first cab if we were taking cabs to the game, because if he had to wait for a second or third cab, he would just about have a hemorrhage. But so he spots the freight elevator and somehow manages to get it to stop on their floor, because it was supposed to be just on certain floors, but he got it, and he got everybody on the freight elevator. And then they discovered that as they were going down, that the only floor they could get off on was the basement, where the kitchen was. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, you can imagine, here's 10 or 12 basketball players and the coach coming pouring out of this elevator into the kitchen. And Larry said they were down there, as you would expect, working feverishly to prepare food and get things ready for the people already there, plus the ones coming. And there was no clue how to go. I mean, it was just a madhouse. There weren't directions. They weren't expecting those kind of visitors. And so anyway, Coach Rupp leads them right down the middle of it, and realizes he doesn't know where he's going. So he stops with this great big guy with a cleaver in his hand, slicing roast beef off of a carcass. And he says, "Can you tell us, please, sir, how to get out of this basement and out to the street so we can get to our airplane?" And Larry said the guy took the meat cleaver and pointed with it and said, "Out that red door over there." And Coach Rupp, who, whenever he was happy with something, would always say, "All right, fine." And so he looked at that guy and said, "All right, fine. Come on, fellas, let's go."
Yeah. Mike, when you started, I thought you were going to say when they lost, it was the players didn't play well, and then when they won, it was due to brilliant coaching. But and I suspect that's the way it was anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
well, he wasn't bashful about himself.
Yeah.
Nor was he bashful about if he thought player X had made a lot of bad plays and cost him the game. And the Coach Rupp show after the game, he was going to hear about it.
Yep.
I mean, he didn't beat around the bush. Yep. But he was fair. He also gave a lot of credit, and he studied the media when we had our team meetings, especially during the week when you're practicing. There was always 30 minutes of shooting. Everybody had a ball, and they worked very hard on their individual games and skills. And then at 3:45, like magic, everybody appeared at the middle of the court, and Coach Rupp was standing there, and they would listen to whatever he had to say. And a lot of times it would be comments related to our team and the players about the media. And you could almost count on it. If the media had written some really good stories about you were going to hear about it. He was going to take you down a notch or two, because he was worried you would get too fat-headed. On the other hand, if they had been harsh, he would find ways to pump everybody up. So he was a very foxy, very clever manager of the media. But anyway, that's my story for the day, capturing Adolph with his drive and impatience and just constantly go, go, go.
I got a couple, and I want to add one right on top of what Mike just said. After the runs, Louis Dampier was getting all the press and all the fame and first team All-American, all of this. And Pat Riley was maybe second or third team and that sort of stuff. And he was feeling a bit down. And Coach Rupp pulled him aside and said, "Son, do you know you're going to be named SEC Player of the Year? I think you're the best gall darned," he didn't say gall darned, player in the country. So get your dauber up. I think you're the best boy on the team, something like that. So he knew when to use it one way and he knew when to encourage. So that's one thing people don't know about Coach Rupp. Yeah. So two other things. I have a high school classmate who was the Bengals team doctor until about 10 years ago when he retired. About 15 years ago, the NFL put a practice in place of having all the team doctors, the trainers, and all the emergency response personnel on site meet for an hour before the game to pre-plan what would happen if this happened or that happened. And that's the reason that boy is alive today. Mm-hmm. They, from the instant it happened, they took quickly all the right steps in the right urgency and so forth to keep the young man alive. So it's something that's not publicized. I only know it because of Rob Height being my classmate, and he told me about it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Now, God had a lot to do with that boy being alive, but so did the doctors and the trainers and the others, the emergency responders. So I'm glad he's alive, and I hope he survives. But there's a lot of planning and forethought that goes into what might happen at a sports event. One final thing. We were talking about football and basketball schools. The best recruiting story I've ever heard was Digger Phelps convincing LaFonso Ellis that Notre Dame was not a football school, but it was a basketball school, and he should choose Notre Dame over Illinois, which was a basketball school, not a football school. I thought that was superb recruiting to convince a high school All-American that Notre Dame was not a football school. That took quite a bit of persuasion.
And LaFonso's a bright guy. Of course, he's on TV at the halftime shows, and he's very smart. But that's, of course, Digger was a great salesman too. It's hard for me to imagine Pat Riley being down because he had a wealth of self-esteem. It was quiet a lot of times, but he had confidence in himself, to say the least. Mike, you probably would agree with that. You were around him hours and hours. And he didn't brag about things out loud, but he knew he could do things good. I remember when being a lifeguard, he would wait till the kids had to be out of the pool for 15 minutes an hour or something, and he would go to the high board, the high diving board, and do flips and show off was what he was doing. And if I could do that, I'd probably show off too. But great athlete in a lot of sports besides basketball.
This is Pat Riley you're talking?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was absolutely marvelous, and I think his, I guess it would have been his senior year, the year after I left. He would have been even better if he hadn't. Yeah. He had a hurt back most of that season. Yeah. He was really the best player in the country. I thought my senior year, which was his junior, I guess was his junior year. Mm-hmm. Somebody else got from Utah, somebody got the player.
Jerry Chambers.
Yeah. Jerry Chambers. Yep. But I think that was because he was so ahead of everybody else on his team that his star shone a little brighter. But I mean, Riley, every game was Mr. Consistency and scoring and rebounding. And the other thing he was doing was really holding the team together at times. Conley and Cron were the captains, and they did a good job of leadership, but Pat was the enforcer.
Yeah.
And it was they truly worked as a team on that as well as anything else. And they all have egos, just like anybody does. But that experience with the Runts taught me more about the importance of true teamwork and getting people to focus on a goal and really care about the goal more than themselves is so powerful. And the runts were a great story there because we started the season. I think we were picked fourth in the SEC, and as I may have said here before, because it's true, I've told a lot of people right before Thanksgiving as we were practicing, and I was doing my things as a manager as well as refereeing the scrimmages. My thought was that to the extent I would have any legacy, it was going to be that I was the manager of the worst team Coach Rupp ever had.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't. They just couldn't cut it. But with the leadership of those guys, and they just kept working, they turned it around.
Yeah,
that's a good point, Mike. If you look at the year before and the year after, the records were not good at all, but something about the runts clicked, and they were just way, way, way better than you thought they might be, as it turned out.
Well, and one thing, because that was the first year of Joe Hall came in the summer prior to the runts, got on this running program, and no other schools were doing it. And I wish Joe had
part of it.
Yeah, I wish Joe had started that because it was so hot in Gainesville. And coming from Lexington in 3 weeks in September, about killed me down there. But anyway, they were in better shape than about every team, I'm sure, because of that preseason conditioning.
Yes, and if you check the play of the game over the year, I would say more than half the games we won were very close with 3 or 4 minutes to play. In fact, we might even been a point or two behind. But the last few minutes, we were just in better shape, and the other team was gasping for breath, and we were still blowing it down the court.
Mm-hmm.
So it did make a huge difference. There were a lot of things came together there. Coach Rupp and Coach Lancaster did a great job. Hall came in with his new ideas. And see, another thing people don't give Coach Rupp enough credit for is while he was obviously an established coach and didn't have to, but he had taken his paranoia and turned it into a strength. He was so scared that somebody else was going to figure out something that he hadn't, that he was constantly going around talking to everybody about what can we do to get better? What do you think? And then listening and didn't always agree or do it, but he was thinking about it. And things like going to the 1-3-1 or the transitional hyperboloid man-to-man that we did a year before. You know, most people with the success he had would not have been willing or thought it necessary to make that kind of change.
Yep.
But when his coaches convinced him that the particular team we had was really good at that and would make a difference, he said, "Okay, let's try it." So he was very good.
Hope Cal hears this podcast. Cal Perry hears this podcast because there are times where UK needs to go into zone and he will not do it. Of course, you can't do it. You got to practice it. You can't just do it on the fly. But
exactly.
But to be prepared and to go into it, probably would have won a lot more games over the years. Just force somebody to shoot outside.
I think that's a good example of what I've always been concerned about. I mean, Coach Cal brings a lot of strengths and has done obviously very, very well. But some things he's missing is I don't think he has particularly good assistants because he doesn't go after them. And then secondly, I don't think he listens to them.
Yeah, he doesn't listen, I think.
And you know, that's just the wrong approach. I've been a very successful manager and studied a lot about diversity, and you know, the media thinks diversity is about the race and ethnicity and gender and that is part of it. But the bigger part is getting people with different skills and different ways of thinking to come together and focus on a goal together, and then giving everybody a chance to say what they think and then get the right answer. Mm-hmm. You get a better answer. It takes a little longer, and a lot of people are impatient and they think they know the answer, so they don't want to do that. But when you get a group together like we did the runts and get them all working on the goal and contributing, it's very, very, very powerful.
Like what you just said is very profound. I've never heard that or thought of it that way. You know, as you said, when you think of diversity, you think about race, religion, and so forth, but it doesn't have to be that.
No, it can be the little person who's very shy in the back of the room, but is sitting there with the best idea. But if somebody doesn't reach out and ask him or her what they think, they'll probably never say it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in meetings where that's happened. And so most of the time in a business or a team or something, people are not there because they're not capable. I mean, they are capable to a certain extent. And so if you get them really thinking and motivated to do the right things and contribute, it's just better. You just get better results.
Tom, you work for a large corporation. I was kind of on my own, so I didn't have those type of meetings. But did you find that to be true occasionally, Tom, at CNA Insurance?
Absolutely. CNA and others. I work for companies even bigger than CNA. And quite often, the best idea came from an unexpected source. And the best managers asked everybody what they thought, not just their 2 or 3 favorites. So I wholeheartedly agree with Mike that you got to seek counsel from everybody. And the most successful, and I'll give you examples. John Wooden was successful because he had really good assistants. Al McGuire was successful because he had really good assistants. And we're talking basketball. There are other examples. But whether it's a big company or a sport or whatever it is, seek input from everybody. And that's where your best ideas come from.
Mm-hmm. And we're getting away from basketball, but when you're on that team that invented the infrared light, who came up with that idea to try to invent it? Do you remember?
I'm not sure who invented it, but there was some discussion. My manager at the time proposed it to the vice president, and the vice president said, "I don't know much about that, but I trust you. We'll go with it." So we went from having no expertise in January of 2005 to having 50 people trained and 20 infrared cameras purchased and used by the end of 2005. So, and it was just a incredible success from something that developed just from an idea. And a lot of companies would have said, that costs too much money, or we don't have the time, or we can't do that. We can't do the training, any number of excuses. So we went from having nothing to having the best program in the industry within 12 months.
And saving a lot of lives. So.
Saving lives, the insurance saves money, the insurance company saves money. It's a win-win-win all around.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's just go ahead and continue with the business discussion while we're on the subject. I'm kidding, but well, guys, anything else to cover? No,
we hope we'll see some changes and improvements in the cats. Let's all hope so.
Well, and after Alabama, there's a tough game. I mean, every game on the road, I think, is going to be tough for UK, and probably 2/3 of them at home are going to be very tough. It's the league has gotten better and better, continues to improve.
Well, Gary, one more thing I wanted to leave you with.
Sure.
You and I talked, and I forgot to bring it up. Cal signed a lifetime contract, about 4 years ago?
Yep, 18,
and since then, his record is 70-34, which is not UK caliber numbers. And he's won 1 SEC tournament game, 0 NCAA tournament games, and not much else. Yeah. So I don't know what that says about lifetime contracts and whether that makes you hungry or not, but the results so far have not been good.
No.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I agree completely. Haven't seen that many lifetime contracts, but I've not seen anybody keep their zeal once that happens. It's like putting a brick on your head. It just takes away your motivation.
Mm-hmm. And we may see that. I hope not, but we could see that with Stoops down the road. He signed an 8-year renewal, didn't he, a year or so ago? I mean, he's set for a long time with a big salary. His salary is actually slightly better than Calipari right now. Cal's getting a raise, automatic raise that'll put him back ahead. But so we'll see what happens with football also. But well, we appreciate everybody joining us. Again, the email address to send in comments, or if you have somebody you'd like for us to try to get on to interview, and we're going to be actively trying to get more people on to interview. The email address is chatwildcats@gmail.com. chatwildcats@gmail.com. And we thank everybody for listening and look forward to the next episode.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for listening to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now. Mixed by sensational audio expert Daniel Dottridge of Atlanta Podcast Recording with web hosting by Buzzsprout. On behalf of hosts Gary Waddell and Mike Harreld, go Big Blue.